How's it going, everybody? How you doing? You doing all right? This is the last Cult of Lamb survival challenge before I mix it up and start doing other types of survival challenges. You feeling okay? Don't freak out. I'm gonna come back and keep doing the Cult of the Lamb survival challenges. And if you're one of my viewers who have been watching me for a while and aren't here for the survival challenges, and you're more interested in like the Forgotten Beauties videos and the Golden Year videos, don't freak out. I haven't forgotten about them. I'm gonna go back to doing them. But I kind of have to ride this wave right now. I'm getting a massive spike in viewership at the moment because of these videos. So I'm gonna spit out a bunch of these. When the viewership sort of dies down for those, which it will inevitably, I'll go back to rotating my videos. So you'll have one survival video, one Forgotten Beauties video, one Golden Year video, and then it's just gonna keep going like that. So everybody's gonna get the video that they want every, I don't know, other week or so. So don't freak out. This whole channel has not like completely changed to become just about survival stuff. All right, enough of wasting everybody's time. Let's get started. All right, up first is Nobody from Nobody Saves the World. And everybody knows what that means. I get to do my favorite thing. Shit on Hollow Knight. You know what the funny thing is? I actually really like Hollow Knight. I like the character of the knight. I like the world they built. I like the gameplay and the game as a whole. It's just the fans of Hollow Knight are so adamant on being wrong. Anyway, Nobody is this weird looking white naked dude with a magical wand that allows him to transmog himself into one of, I don't know, I think 20 different forms. I don't remember the exact number. He can turn into everything from a rat to like an engineer guy to a fucking fire breathing dragon to a mermaid and all kinds of other crazy shit. He transforms himself from one being to a totally different being. This being that he turns himself into has different types of knowledge, like the engineer, who's capable of actually building structures and shit that he cannot do in his normal form. So it actually manipulates the knowledge that he has based on his transformation, as well as the power that he has, like, you know, being a fire-breathing dragon. And Nobody has this magic wand that, regardless of what form he transforms into, like when he transforms into the rat, who is actually smaller than the wand itself, he can still transform back, and he still has access to the wand, even though he can't even physically hold it. Like, the wand transmogs with him into whatever he transforms into. It seems to basically become a part of him when he's transmogged into these different forms. And this is the distinction that I've been trying to make for like 4 goddamn videos about the knight. The knight does not transmog. He's just like a shade creature that can change his shape. When I say that he's a shapeshifter, I mean that literally. He is a shade made out of a particular weird black substance that can change the shape of that substance. He can grow, he can shrink, he can turn into a little worm thing, but he's still the same being made out of the same stuff. It's not transmogrification. It's changing his shape. He is made out of something that is malleable, like flubber. The argument kept getting used that because he is a shapeshifter, he can resist transmog. And someone brought up the example of D&D. Shapeshifters in D&D can resist transmog in D&D. Yes, because the shapeshifters in D&D can transform into different creatures. A bear, a giant spider, whatever. They're going from one form made out of one thing to a different form made out of a completely different thing. The knight can't fucking do that. So if he gets transmogged into a little fucking rat, he's not gonna be a rat that's still made out of that shade substance. He's gonna be a flesh and blood rat. He no longer has his shape-shifting power. All that will be left among him and all of his items and weapons and everything will just be that little rat. Nothing else. He won't be able to use any of his items or anything else. He won't even have the same level of intelligence anymore. He will no longer be the knight. He will be a regular fucking rat. Nobody resists this power because we see that both him and the wand can be transmogged into different things, different beings, and still transform back into other stuff. That is the distinction that I've tried to make like 10 goddamn times. And for some reason, people keep pretending that I haven't already made it. Are they gonna get it this time? Of course not. Who needs growth? What the fuck is that shit? Anyway, continuing back on to Nobody. One of the cool things about Nobody is that for every new form that he acquires, he adds it to his repertoire of transformations and they can sort of like blend together. Like for instance, he can be a mermaid that can swim underwater and shoot water pellets, but also breathe fire like the dragon as long as he has that dragon transformation. So it doesn't matter what form he's in, he can use the powers of all of his other forms while being in that one form. This gives his power an absolute shit ton of variety where he can basically come up with any combination he wants to in order to get out of any situation that he needs to. And boy, oh boy, is he gonna need it because he's not particularly strong and he's not particularly fast. His physical stats overall are pretty shit, but that kind of doesn't matter. For instance, one of his transformations is a ghost, and the ghost has some pretty fucking broken powers on his own. Like, he has this move called Boo that just creates this aura that not only causes fear in every single person who stands in it and makes them run away, but also just continuously damages them over time. On top of that, he has a move called Ethereal, which basically just lets him pass through things without actually touching them. Like, he can go through walls and enemies and even attacks. attacked. He's basically untouchable in this form. And when he goes through people, he also constantly damages them every second he's touching them. Now, these two abilities on their own sound pretty fucking broken, but imagine taking those powers and giving it to one of his other forms. So now he's a giant fire-breathing dragon that can't be attacked and also creates an aura that constantly kills everyone in the area. He also has a zombie form that every person that he bites, when they die, they come back to life as a zombie and help fight beside him, right? So now he's a giant fire-breathing ghost dragon that creates zombies. Then you have a ranger character he could turn into, who has a passive ability that every single attack that she does poisons the target. Now add that on top of it. Now you're a giant fire-breathing ghost dragon that creates zombies, and also that field that constantly damages you, and that touching ethereal thing that also damages you, well, now it also poisons you as well. And this is how the game works. It's all about coming up with all sorts of crazy combinations to make just straight up broken builds where the game actually lets you break it by coming up with good combinations. And while there's absolutely a limit to what it is you're allowed to do, like you can only have so many passives on a character. It's not like you can take all 20 forms that he has and just put all their powers onto one dude. It still gives you the opportunity for a wide variety of combinations. And this is the reason why I think that nobody will actually probably be okay on this island. Well, at least as far as the cultists go. He's still not going to be able to do anything against the higher tiers. As again, he's not really that physically powerful and doesn't have resistance to pretty much any hacks. As far as his ethereal move goes, that makes it so that other people can't touch him. He just phases right through him. Lamb is capable of just grabbing souls out of the air that are ethereal in nature and just putting them in this book prison thing. So that won't even really work as a defense against him. Believe it or not, the Lamb actually doesn't have a resistance to fear manipulation. So that whole aura thing he makes that causes fear will work. That's just not really enough when compared to all of the different ways that the Lamb can kill nobody. And the fact that nobody can't really kill the Lamb. Just constantly scaring him over and over again is not a long-term solution, as he has no permanent way of actually putting him down. So the question is, if we go by his personality, would he come into contact with the Lamb and the bishops? I think I give it like a 50-50. So the truth is that nobody is kind of an asshole. He is the hero of Nobody Saves the World, but throughout the game, he kind of acts like he really doesn't want to be bothered with all this bullshit. The only reason why he goes on the adventure is because he doesn't know who or what he is. Like, he has absolutely no memories. The reason why he's called Nobody is because he doesn't have a name to give anyone. He doesn't know anything about himself. He goes on this adventure so that he can find this wizard who might be able to actually tell him what the fuck he even is. And then this leads into this massive adventure where he realizes that he has a very specific link to the final villain of the game and all that, and I'm not going to spoil it. It's a pretty cool story. I guessed the twist before I got to the end. It wasn't really that difficult to figure out, but it is kind of a cool twist regardless. Anyway, point is, the whole reason he goes on the mission that he goes on is because it is specifically related to him. There really isn't any evidence that he would go out of his way to stop the horrors and corruption that happen on the island if it doesn't specifically involve him or something that he wants. And considering that he's not really that powerful compared to them, I don't see himself going out of his way to try and take them on. His time on the island will essentially be him just trying to survive, hiding from cultists, fighting cultists when he has to, just sort of trying to live a life, as much of a life as he can in this horrible environment that he finds himself in. Is it inevitable that he will eventually be killed if he does this for long enough? Yeah, probably, but he certainly has a chance. If he focuses his energy on surviving and not like taking out the evils of the island, as well as staying away from the higher tiers, he'll be fine. So next up we have Will from Will? His name's fucking Will? Jesus Christ, that's so fucking lame. What kind of fucking fantasy hero's name is Will? Fuck it, he dies. He dies instantly of shame. Creator of this game should have given him a better name. No, but seriously, he probably does die though. So fucking Will is actually a merchant. Like, the whole game consists of you going into the dungeon and fighting people so you can get supplies, bring it back to your shop, and sell it to people. You are a merchant warrior. My biggest issue with this game is going to be the issue that gets him killed here. See, my problem with the game is that it's split in half, with the merchant stuff, with you running your shop, and the dungeon running stuff. And neither of it is really done to the quality that I would like. Both of them are very simplistic and don't give you a lot of control on how you run the shop or how you go into the dungeon. For instance, the only thing you can do in the dungeon is roll and swing your weapon. There's no magic or special abilities or relics or anything like that. The only magic that the character can use is if he enchants his weapon, which gives his weapon different kinds of abilities like poison or fire or whatever. But outside of that, fucking Will is really just a guy with a weapon that's going around swinging it at people. He swings it pretty fucking hard. I mean, the first boss of the game is a giant stone golem golem that's like 15 times his size and he takes it out. So he's definitely strong enough to take on cultists in a sword fight, but no hacks exists in the game. So even if I do put him on the island at his absolute strongest, which is the case for all the characters in this challenge, he'll do fine against the cultists, but the second he starts running into any of the higher ups, he's gonna start getting his ass beat because he just doesn't have any defense for even most of the magic that they have. And even the stronger regular cultists have magical abilities that will pretty badly fuck him up. Now I will say this, Will is a pretty selfish character. So his whole character is that when he was a child he wanted to be a hero, but his family were all merchants that needed his help in running their shop. So he just did that growing up. So he gave up his dream of becoming a hero in order to be a merchant. But now that he's an adult and both his mother and father died, he decided to re-up on his dream, become a hero, go into the dungeons and fight monsters. But the reason why he wants to be a hero is not for any heroic reason. He isn't trying to end suffering or overthrow some great evil. He just likes the idea of being a hero going into dungeons and fighting monsters. So he's definitely not a bad guy. Like, he doesn't hurt anybody, but he's not a good guy either. He just likes to do what he likes to do. And because of that, I don't really see him going out of his way to go after the higher ups on the island to save people, because that's not really what he's into. And the thing that he excels at even more than combat is collecting special items and selling them to other people. There is not a doubt in my mind that when he gets to the island, he's going to try opening another shop and essentially become a salesman to the entire island. He will have other sellers to compete with, and maybe that might lead to some form of violence, but that doesn't really matter because most of them he can kill on his own. They don't really have that much fighting skill, but I do think if he decides to do this and open up a shop and start selling to people, that will be the thing that keeps him alive. He will be seen as someone who has a use on the island by keeping the cults supplied with weapons and armor and things like that. But even there, he has some pretty major weaknesses. And this goes back to the fact that the game just isn't very fleshed out when it comes to its systems. In Moonlighter, you can forge weapons and armor and things like that, but Will isn't the one who does it. There's another forge shop in the town that you have to go to forge your weapons and armor. You, Will yourself, who owns your own shop, is not capable of doing that. And your options for what you can forge is pretty damn limited. So even though he's gonna go to the island with all of his best stuff that he's already forged from his own story, once he gets to the island, he can't forge anything new because he doesn't have the skill to forge things. This other forge guy that lives in his town does. And that guy isn't coming to the island with him. Same thing with enchantment. He cannot enchant his own stuff. The only thing that Will can do is sell shit he finds in dungeons. He's essentially a collector and merchant and nothing more. He would have had a significantly easier time on the island if he himself had the ability to enchant his own shit and forge his own weapons and armor. If that was the case, when he got to the island, he'd be able to use all sorts of different supplies that he finds here to make all kinds of crazy shit. But he's not capable of doing that. He is a forager, not a blacksmith. A collector, not a creator. And this is going to really hold not only him, but his shop back. Because he's only going to be able to sell shit that he finds, and he can't do anything with it other than just sell it as is. So not only will he be relatively mediocre when it comes to him fighting people on the island, but he'll also be a relatively mediocre shop. He'll go into lands of the old faith and fight monsters and stuff, although not go too far and fight the too strong of monsters because they'll kill him. And he'll collect materials from them and sell them at his shop, and the cultists won't kill him because he supplies them with those things, but that's it. He is going to have a very mediocre life from that point on. I hope if they make a Moonlighter 2 or release more DLC that they add more shit that you can do in the game. If they do that, he'll probably do better on the island, but as of now, he's just way too limited. I mean, literally all he can do is roll, hit things, and teleport back to base. Which, by the way, costs money for him to do. There just isn't a whole lot going on here. Fucking Will. Next up, we have Ajna from Indivisible, and boy, oh boy, am I gonna piss some people off with this one. So in the game, there's this godlike being named Kala, who has destroyed and recreated the universe several times over, countless times. She even says she doesn't know how many times she's done it, in this attempt to create a perfect world. At some point, she gets sealed in this special god prison, and some stuff happens. I'm not gonna go into it. She gets fragmented into a bunch of little pieces. One of these little pieces she gets fragmented into becomes Ajna, the main character of the game Indivisible. Kala eventually gets released and wants to destroy the entire universe, but has to like rebuild herself. And Ajna's whole goal is to go and stop her. So I kind of did a little bit of research and seems to think that people believe that Ajna is universe level, that she can destroy and recreate universes just like Kala. So if you haven't played Indivisible and you want to, you may want to skip this part because there's really no way of me talking about this without spoiling the ending of the game. Anyway, at the end of the game, Ajna uses talk no jutsu on Kala and basically convinces her not to try and destroy the universe. They refuse and become whole again, become like that god, and then turn into a big ass fucking star in the sky and spend the rest of all eternity just watching over the universe. So yes, at that point she would be universal. However, how the fuck am I gonna send a star to an island? You know, in case you weren't aware, stars are pretty fucking big. They don't fit on islands. Besides, at that point, Ajna no longer exists. She just becomes a part of Kala, and they become like this new god. It's like a blend of the two. And Ajna even says she will be reborn as a completely new being. So I don't really count her as the strongest version of Ajna. It's just like a totally new thing. And Ajna at her strongest is not capable of destroying the universe. This is the part I think people are going to disagree with. The reason why people believe that she is because the last boss of the game is Kala, and Ajna defeats Kala by the end of the game. So ergo, you defeated someone who can destroy the universe, you can destroy the universe, or you're at least on that level, you are universal. Bullshit. Kala is not universal at the end of this game. The whole story is about how she's fragmented to little pieces and severely weaker than she is normally. Even Ajna is just one little tiny sliver of her full being. I mean, you're capable of fighting against Kala with Ajna and her friends who are just like swordsmen and archers and shit. And then in the last section of the fight where all her friends leave and it's just Ajna and Kala themselves, you don't even attack Kala. Kala just attacks you, and all you have to do is block and dodge the attacks, and every time Kala attacks, she loses health because she's slowly dying, using up the last remnants of her power. Kala's whole goal of the game is to completely destroy this universe and try to rebuild it in an attempt to create the perfect world. But she says more than once that she can't destroy the world because she's fragmented. The reason why she wants Ajna to rejoin with her is so she can get all her power back and use it to destroy the universe. So the story goes out of its way to tell us more than once that Kala cannot destroy the universe in the story. She can't do that until the end after she fuses with Ajna. And like I said, by that point, they form a completely different, unique being that's just a fucking star that I can't send to the island. So if you're thinking to yourself while I'm talking about this point that why doesn't Ajna just blow up the fucking planets? That's why. She can't. But even if she could, one, she wouldn't because that's against her personality to do. And two, it wouldn't fucking work anyway. Both the Lamb and the Bishops come back from the dead and have self-sustenance. They don't need food, water, or even air to survive. They just are. The truth is that as a god, Kala's powers are very basic. She can destroy shit and she can recreate shit. The Indivisible verse does not have a multiverse. It's just one universe with one god. And this point can be ported over to Ajna herself. She doesn't really have any hacks abilities. She's very, very powerful and can destroy shit. And she has a really cool and unique power called the Inner Realm, where she could basically focus and jump into her own mind. And it's basically like her own sort of mental universe. It's not really an alternate universe. It's just her inside her head, but she can literally teleport into there, where she physically moves inside her own brain. And she can also take other people and put them in there as well, whether by force or choice. She could lock people inside of her own mind. Now, throughout the vast majority of the game, she puts her friends and allies in there so that she can summon them whenever she wants to help her in combat. That's the main mechanic of the game. But in reality, she could just lock anybody in there she wants to, and once the people are in her mind, they can't attack other people in her mind. Nobody there can physically attack one another. Easily her coolest power. But the question is, how will she do if she's stuck on the island? Well, I don't think I really have to explain this anymore, but she absolutely dominates 99% of it. Even if she is only a fragment of a god that can destroy the universe, and she herself is not capable of doing that, the ability to just block everyone you come into contact with in your mind, as well as the physical feats she has in the game, like just running through like 20-foot thick rock, means that she can hurt pretty much anybody here. She can beat them physically, and she could trap them in her mind. So it won't be any issues when it comes to her fighting the vast majority of people here. Problem here is when she gets to the godlike characters. Yes, she can trap people in her mind, but these characters are shown to be able to travel between multiple dimensions, including prison dimensions that were designed to hold gods. The only people that Ajna ever traps inside her mind are like regular ass people. Swordsmen, archers, sorcerers, people who are not capable of jumping into multiple dimensions. So there's no evidence that she can keep someone there who is shown to be able to do that casually. And while Ajna will easily physically dominate all the gods on the island, because none of them have shown anything even close to what Ajna can do, they completely out-hacks her because her world doesn't really have that much hacks. The only hacks she has is the sucking people in her mind thing. And like I said, since all four bishops and the lamb can escape it, it becomes completely useless, and all she's left with after that is just physically hitting them. But all five of them can just keep coming back to life. life, so she's got really no way of putting them down permanently. However, she is not capable of traveling to multiple universes other than her own inner realm. So they could just toss her into another universe, they can mind fuck her and she has no way of really defending against that. They could rip her soul out, she has no way of defending against that. Pretty much any one of their hacks that they use will work on Ajna because her universe just doesn't really have any of that. There's no evidence at all that she can resist or survive any of it. The god of this universe literally just has the power to destroy and create shit and pretty much nothing else. Ajna, like a lot of other characters in this series, is a heroic character. She isn't at first, but she very clearly follows the hero's journey structure where she doesn't want to go through the thing that she has to do, but she's compelled to, and then she's very reluctant about it, but then over the course of the story, she realizes that this is her responsibility and she has to stop the evil and blah, hero's journey, you know, Luke Skywalker and shit. Anyway, by the end of the game, she accepts her role as the hero. So I find it hard to believe that if she's thrown on this island that's filled with corruption, murder, and death, that she would just not do anything about it. She's gonna try and stop it because she's already accepted her role as the hero. So how would a fight between her, the bishops, and the lamb go? Well, she would instantly surprise them by how physically powerful she is, and that would definitely catch them off guard. She may even just straight up kill them in a couple of hits. But that's only if they don't decide to use any hacks on her, and if they come back from the dead after she kills them, they'll then use the hacks and then put her down. So like I said, she'll be able to wipe out 90% of the population of the island, the evil population, because, you know, she's not just gonna kill innocent people. But again, when she gets the bishop or the lamb, she's getting put down. She just doesn't have the hacks or any resistance to the hacks. This was a really cool one though. The inner realm and how it works in the game and shit, it's worth playing just for that kind of trippy, cool power mechanic. You don't see that in a lot of games. All right, last up is the Terrarian, and this is probably one of the most requested characters that I've gotten to do in these videos. And sadly, I think people are gonna be a little disappointed. Not because he's gonna arrive the island and get his ass whooped or anything like that. He's a pretty powerful character. It's just, I don't really think he's gonna interact with all that many people. Well, okay, let's back up. What is the Terrarian's personality like? And this has actually been debated among the fan base for quite some time. Half the fan base believes that he's just an evil dick, and the other half of the fan base believes that no, he's a good guy who just does bad things in order to achieve a greater good goal. And just to explain to people who haven't played Terraria why this is such a debate is because the Terrarian does a lot of fucked up shit. Like at one point, to get farther in the story, what little story the game actually has, he has to kick a completely innocent man into a pool of lava, and sometimes it doesn't work to do the thing he wants to do, so he has to do it multiple times to different people. So he ends up sacrificing a lot of people. He also destroys this thing called the Wall of Flesh, which leaks corruption into the world, a corruption that causes the deaths of a ton of innocent people. And the argument here for him being a good guy is that he's doing all of this stuff for the sole purpose of making the world a better place and eliminating a lot of problems the world has, while the other side says no, he's just doing it because he wants more power. So the question is, for the purpose of this video, which side do I align on? And somewhere in the middle, I guess. I don't think he's a good guy doing it to save the world, but I also don't think he's some power-hungry madman. I think he's completely indifferent to the suffering of others. So most people believe that in these games where the protagonist doesn't talk and you can kind of do whatever you want, that these protagonists' desires, wants, goals are just whatever the player wants them to be. While sometimes this is the case, most of the time it's not. These characters usually have a specific way that they react to things. Like, for instance, let's bring up the lamb, right? The lamb kills a lot of fucking people in this game. You can sacrifice people, you can murder people, you can do all sorts of horrible things to people. And he reacts very differently depending on what he's doing to who. So like, if he's murdering someone in the middle of the night by like stabbing the shit out of them, he is smiling with glee. He's enjoying himself. If he's choking someone with this sort of force choke thing he can do, again, he seems really fucking happy about it. He can sacrifice people to Midas or hand people over to the Fox, and he doesn't seem to give a shit at all. Sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's completely indifferent. There's only one time where he kills somebody, and there's clearly emotion, and that is Rateau. Rateau is the lamb's mentor and eventual father figure, and at one point you get a chance to sacrifice him to this shadow fox demon in order to acquire a piece of this pendant that you can then use to like buy a new fleece or something. Well, when you sacrifice Rateau, the lamb is clearly bothered by it. It is shown to legitimately hurt him emotionally to do this. That's the only person in the whole game who he has a reaction to. And this is why I sort of fight against the argument where people say whether or not you're a good guy or a bad guy is entirely up to the way you want to play the game. No, it's not. The lamb has a legitimate personality. No matter how evil you are, how evil you want to play the game, sacrificing Rateau hurts the lamb emotionally. He's not happy about making this sacrifice. No matter how you play the game, every other crime in the entire game is totally fine with him because he has a specific personality. No, the Cult of the Lamb gives you the option to not do evil things, but it does not give you the option to do good things, ever. Helob is a giant spider that kidnaps innocent people, eats most of them, and then sells the ones he doesn't want into slavery. As the lamb, you have two choices. You can buy someone from him, which is you actually getting involved in the slave trade, or you can just ignore Helob and run past and just leave, I don't know, 50 people in enslavement and just allow the enslavement to continue. You could stop yourself from doing the bad thing, which is buying another person to indoctrinate into your death cult, or you can ignore the bad thing. But you can't stop it, you can't fight against it, you can't be a good person. That's not possible in this game. And it is baffling to me that people think it is. Anyway, back to Terraria. The Terrarian does pretty much everything that he does in this game without giving a lick of shit about it. Kicking people into volcanoes, destroying the wall of flesh, murdering innocent people. You can build homes for people and charge them a massive amount of rent they could barely even afford. You can treat them extremely poorly, and no matter what you do, the Terrarian is entirely indifferent to all of it. So what kind of person do I think the Terrarian is? I think he's an explorer and adventurer, and he is entirely neutral about what that exploring and adventuring does to other people. He does not take down the wall of flesh for any greater purpose than because he wants to see what would happen if he does. And when he does do it, it allows him to continue on and explore and adventure more. He's like a really, really dark Monkey D. Luffy. I'd say he's like chaotic neutral. And because of this, I don't really think he's going to get involved with anyone across the entirety of the lands of the old faith. For instance, people who are watching this video who play Terraria, what percent of the game would you say takes place on the surface? 5%? 10%? 15%? Not a lot, whatever it is. The vast majority of it takes place underground. You dig holes, you travel underground, you make these large, damn near city-sized areas just by digging and exploring and shit. That's what the Terrarian likes to do. He likes to dig and explore, and he basically lives underground for the most part. Well, the problem is that the entirety of Cult of the Lamb is on the fucking surface. Why would the Lamb, the bishops, or even the cultists give a shit about some crazy mole man digging holes? Nobody is gonna care that he's down there like exploring and finding a bunch of interesting shit that no one else would have found anyway. If anything, they might make a deal with him and be like, hey, if you find anything super crazy down there, you want to like sell it to me and I'll trade you shit for it? They're not going to have any issues with him just existing and digging holes because he's not going on any of their territory. He's not killing a ton of their people. He's not trying to take power away from the Lamb or the bishops or anything like that. He just likes to explore and adventure, and he doesn't care who that hurts, so he doesn't care about what the cultists are doing to all the innocent people on the surface. Yeah, he might come up and try to explore the surface as well, and that might get him involved with the cult and he'll have to fight against them a little bit, but he's powerful enough to completely fuck all of them over anyway, and then he'll go back underground to explore some more. I think the most likely scenario that'll happen with the Terrarian is that he will become one of the independent evils of the island. I've talked about these before, but they're basically two things at the same time. One, they're very, very useful to the cults, so the cults leave them alone, and they're unbelievably dangerous to the average cultist, so they just don't bother with them, right? Like, Midas brings riches to the entire island. People can go up to him and make deals and they get gold from him, but if you fuck with Midas, he'll turn you into gold. Sometimes he'll turn you into gold either way, so the average cultist does not fuck with Midas. Helob runs the entire slave trade of the whole island, so no one fucks with him, and also, he captures and eats people. All of these people are incredibly dangerous, but they have a use for the island. This is where I think the Terrarian will likely lie. I think him exploring the underworld, a place where really nobody else goes except for like a couple of enemies that are capable of digging underground, will mean that not only will he not really be bothered with all that much, but he'll probably discover a bunch of cool and crazy shit down there that he can share with the surface world and essentially become one of those super dangerous but useful people. I absolutely see the Lamb being like, hey, what did you find down there? Would you like to trade? Because you're probably going to find stuff down there that you can't get up here on the surface. And again, the Lamb has no reason to go down there. Nobody has before. There are no underground sections of the Cult of the Lamb game. Everything happens on the surface. So I just don't see why any of them would bother fucking with the Terrarian. And I think the Terrarian would basically be left alone to explore as much as he wants without having too many people fuck with him. Like I said, maybe the occasional monster or cultist, but Terrarian's more than powerful enough to deal with it. So yeah, I think the Terrarian would live very comfortably. And as the days and weeks and months go by, he'll probably have like a little section of the island that's just going to be his, where he might even have people live there and he'll like charge them rent and shit. And he'll cut off his own little piece of the island that he will sort of be like the owner of, the same way that Sozo, Midas, and them have. I don't think that this is going to boil down to some massive war between the Terrarian and the Lamb. As cool as that might be, but this isn't really a versus match thing. This is a how would you survive, and I see the Terrarian doing really well. He'd probably fit right in. But that's all we got for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, join the membership. You'll get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?